Long before the Spanish ever set foot in the Americas, before the rise of the mighty Aztec Empire, before the vast network of Mayan cities had faded into jungle and legend, there existed a city so vast and mysterious that even the Aztecs themselves regarded it as a place of the gods. They called it Teotihuacan, meaning the place where men became gods. When the Aztecs discovered its silent pyramid centuries after its builders had vanished, they were so awed by its scale that they believed it was the birthplace of the sun itself. Yet the people who had once thrived there, who had designed its perfect geometry and raised its colossal temples, were already lost to time. Teotihuacan sits in the Valley of Mexico, just 30 miles northeast of modern-day Mexico City. Today, it's one of the world's most visited archaeological sites, endless avenues of stone stretching into the horizon, dominated by two massive pyramids, the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon. But for more than 1,000 years after its fall, the city lay abandoned, reclaimed by the earth, its people and rulers forgotten. When the first archaeologists began digging in the 19th century, they found no clear trace of its founders. The Aztecs had ruled after it, but Teotihuacan predated them by nearly 1,000 years. It was as if the city had emerged fully formed, flourished for centuries, and then collapsed into silence. For decades, scholars have debated who built Teotihuacan. Was it the Toltecs, the mysterious Otomi, or an even older culture lost to history? What little evidence remains hints at a cosmopolitan population drawn from across ancient Mesoamerica. Archaeologists have found artifacts and art styles from as far as Oaxaca, the Gulf Coast, and the Maya region. It was a melting pot of ancient peoples, united somehow under a single vision. That vision transformed a small settlement into one of the most powerful urban centers in the ancient world, a city that may have held more than 100,000 inhabitants, rivaling Rome at its height. At its peak around 250 AD, Teotihuacan was unlike any city in the Americas. Its planners laid it out with stunning precision, the entire city aligned to astronomical events. The Avenue of the Dead, the city's main thoroughfare, runs north to south, with a subtle tilt of 15.5 degrees east of true north. That orientation matches the setting of the Pleiades and the path of the sun on certain sacred days of the year. The city itself became a calendar in stone. From above, Teotihuacan looks almost impossibly modern, a grid of avenues, plazas, and temples that would influence urban design across Mesoamerica for centuries. Beneath its beauty, though, there are secrets that suggest something much stranger. In the early 2000s, archaeologists began exploring hidden tunnels beneath the pyramids of the Sun and the Feathered Serpent. Deep under the pyramid's base, they discovered a long, sealed passageway that had remained untouched for nearly 2,000 years. Inside were offerings of jade, seashells, obsidian blades, statues, and, most mysteriously, traces of liquid mercury glinting in the darkness. No one knows exactly why mercury was placed there, but some believe it represented rivers of the underworld, mirroring the cosmic realms above. Teotihuacan's art reveals a culture obsessed with the cosmos, balance, and transformation. Unlike the later Aztecs or Maya, the city's walls show no glorified rulers or named kings. Instead, they're filled with depictions of gods, animals, and abstract symbols, particularly the feathered serpent, later known as Quetzalcoatl. Some scholars think this anonymity means the city was ruled collectively, a kind of priestly order rather than a single monarch. Others believe it reflects a spiritual worldview where human identity dissolved into the divine. Either way, Teotihuacan's builders seem to see themselves as part of something far greater, a cosmic order that governed everything from the heavens to the earth. But as much as the city embodied harmony, it also held violence. Beneath the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, archaeologists discovered mass graves, the skeletons of warriors bound and sacrificed during the pyramid's construction. Their remains were arranged in symbolic patterns, many wearing necklaces made of human jaws. It's as if the city's spiritual center was built on blood. Some believe these sacrifices were meant to energize the city, to ensure cosmic balance, to keep the universe itself in motion. To Teotihuacan's people, creation and destruction were one and the same, each breath of life requiring death in return. When the city finally fell around the year 550 AD, it burned. Charred walls and smashed statues tell of riots, rebellion, or perhaps invasion. Yet no one knows who struck the final blow. The empire vanished without leaving a name, its rulers erased from memory, its temples silenced. And centuries later, when the Aztecs stumbled upon its ruins, they could only stare in awe at what they believed was the birthplace of gods, a divine city too great to have been made by men. The Pyramid of the Sun rises above the Valley of Mexico like a man-made mountain, a silent witness to a civilization that disappeared more than a millennium ago. 200 feet tall and nearly 700 feet across at its base, it is one of the largest structures ever built in the ancient world. To climb it is to feel small against the vastness of both the land and the past. From its summit, the Avenue of the Dead stretches straight to the Pyramid of the Moon, and beyond that, the hazy mountains of the Sierra de Pachuca. When sunlight strikes the pyramid at dawn or dusk, it glows the color of fire. To the Aztecs, who rediscovered it centuries later, it was the very place where the sun had first been born. The pyramid is made of millions of tons of volcanic stone and rubble. The builders did not use wheels or iron tools, and yet they raised this monument with mathematical precision. The sides are aligned almost perfectly to the cardinal directions, and the whole structure rests on a cave, an artificial tunnel carved deep into the bedrock. That cave may be the key to understanding why the pyramid was built at all. In 1971, workers repairing a drainage system near the base stumbled upon an opening. Archaeologists crawled inside and found a long, man-made passageway that led directly beneath the center of the pyramid. It was about 4 meters wide, tall enough to stand in, and extended nearly 100 meters before ending in a clover-shaped chamber. The air was still and heavy, the walls blackened with soot from ancient torches. Inside the chamber were fragments of pottery, obsidian blades, and the remains of offerings left perhaps 2,000 years earlier. Later studies using ground-penetrating radar confirmed that the pyramid had been deliberately constructed on top of this cave. To Teotihuacan's people, caves were portals, doorways to the underworld and to the womb of the earth itself. Building a pyramid above one would have united heaven and the underworld in a single axis, turning the monument into the world's center. The symbolism is powerful. The cave below represents the origins of life, the place of emergence. The pyramid above, with its 5 great terraces, mirrors the movement of the sun and the 5 ages of the world described in later Aztec myth. When viewed from the east during the summer solstice, the sun sets directly behind its apex. Every year, hundreds of visitors gather to watch that moment, unaware they are repeating a ritual observed more than 16 centuries ago. Archaeologists have long debated whether the Pyramid of the Sun was ever topped by a temple. The evidence suggests there may once have been a small shrine, perhaps dedicated to the god of fire or the sun itself. Whatever once stood there was stripped away long before the Spanish arrived. Yet fragments of sculptures found nearby show motifs of serpents, jaguars, and shells, symbols of water and fertility. The mixture of fire and water imagery suggests the structure was not only solar but cosmic, the balance of creation and destruction, light and darkness. Beneath the surface, the mysteries deepen. In 2011, researchers from Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History used scanning equipment to map hidden chambers below the pyramid. The results hinted at additional cavities and side tunnels that have never been excavated. Some show signs of mercury residue, the same strange substance later found under the temple of the Feathered Serpent. Mercury, rare and toxic, would have shimmered like liquid light. Perhaps it symbolized the rivers of the underworld or the blood of the gods. In the flicker of torchlight, it would have looked like molten silver flowing through darkness. Why would the builders go to such extremes? Some scholars think these underground passages were part of initiation ceremonies. Priests and rulers may have entered the tunnels to symbolically die and be reborn, emerging as intermediaries between worlds. The cave could have served as both tomb and womb, a place where power was renewed. Others propose it was an astronomical observatory, aligning with constellations now lost to time. The truth remains buried beneath tons of earth and stone. What astonishes modern researchers is the sheer engineering behind it all. The builders leveled the valley floor using volcanic ash and crushed stone, creating a foundation that has survived nearly 2 millennia of earthquakes. Drainage systems run beneath plazas to channel rainwater away, primitive yet effective hydraulics that kept the city functioning. The pyramid's core of rubble and adobe, packed tightly within stone facings, absorbs shock better than concrete. Whoever designed it understood the land intimately. Even now, the pyramid exerts a magnetic pull on those who visit. Standing at its base, you feel the echo of thousands of footsteps that once climbed those stairs to offer incense, flowers, or blood to the sun. You feel the weight of an empire's faith in stone. The wind whispers through the avenue of the dead, carrying with it the memory of chants and drums that once echoed between the mountains. For centuries after the city's fall, villagers avoided the site, believing it cursed or sacred beyond comprehension. Yet its presence never faded. It waited, silent and patient, for its rediscovery. Today, tourists ascend the Pyramid of the Sun by the thousands, unaware that beneath their feet lies a tunnel that may still hide the answers to who built Teotihuacan and why they vanished. Some say the city was destroyed by fire and rebellion, others that its people migrated north, becoming the ancestors of later civilizations. Whatever happened, the pyramid remains, a monument to humanity's oldest question. Who are we beneath the heavens, and why do we build so high toward the light? At the southern end of the Avenue of the Dead lies a structure that has fascinated and disturbed archaeologists since the day it was uncovered. It is smaller than the Pyramid of the Sun, less imposing than the Pyramid of the Moon, but in many ways far more revealing. It is the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, known to later Mesoamerican civilizations as Quetzalcoatl. Here, buried beneath layers of stone and ritual, the secrets of Teotihuacan's religion and society come into stark focus. It was in this temple that archaeologists found proof of both the city's brilliance and its brutality. The temple's facade is carved with a mesmerizing array of serpent heads, their jaws open, fangs bared, eyes inlaid with obsidian and seashells. Between them appear another face, a goggle-eyed creature with fanged lips, believed to be Tlaloc, the storm god. Feathered serpents and rain deities alternate in rhythmic repetition, as if the entire temple were breathing between life and death, between sky and water. When sunlight hits the carvings at certain angles, the shadows make the serpents seem to move, sliding through the stone itself. This illusion was likely intentional. The feathered serpent represented the union of heaven and earth, the being that could travel between realms. It was the embodiment of transformation, a god of rebirth and power. When the temple was excavated in the 1980s, archaeologists made a chilling discovery. Beneath its central staircase lay the remains of more than 200 individuals. Many were young men, their hands bound behind their backs, buried with weapons, ornaments, and collars made from human jawbones. Some were arranged in rows, others in small groups. Most had been sacrificed at the time of the pyramid's construction, their bodies placed there as living offerings to consecrate the temple. Among them were also animals, jaguars, eagles, serpents, creatures of war and divinity. It was a burial not of punishment but of ritual devotion, a merging of life and death to power the city's heart. What makes these burials even more mysterious is the precision with which they were performed. The bodies were placed symmetrically, with offerings of obsidian blades, beads, and exotic shells from distant oceans. This was no random act of violence. It was a ceremony of cosmic order. In Teotihuacan's worldview, creation could not exist without destruction. The sacrificed warriors were believed to become companions of the gods, guardians of the temple's divine energy. Their death gave life to the city, their blood feeding the forces that sustained the sun and rain. Archaeologists found something else that defied explanation. Alongside the human remains were objects of immense value: jade from Guatemala, shells from the Caribbean, and mirrors of polished pyrite that once reflected torchlight like liquid fire. The mirrors are particularly intriguing. In Mesoamerican belief, mirrors were portals to other realms. Priests would gaze into them to communicate with gods or ancestors. Some of the mirrors found under the Feathered Serpent Temple were placed on the chests of the dead, suggesting they were meant to serve as gateways for the soul's journey. In the dim glow of torchlight, the priests who performed these rites would have watched the reflections of their own faces dissolve into darkness. As excavations continued, researchers discovered tunnels beneath the temple complex, narrow, hand-carved shafts leading to sealed chambers filled with offerings. In 2015, one such chamber yielded a breathtaking find: dozens of mysterious orbs, perfectly round, coated with a mineral that glimmered gold under light. The archaeologists called them disco balls, though their purpose remains unknown. Some believe they symbolize stars, representing the heavens inside the underworld. Others think they were part of initiation rituals, glowing faintly in the torchlight like a constellation trapped underground. Scans later revealed even more hidden rooms farther below, still untouched. Whatever lies within them remains sealed beneath centuries of earth. The Temple of the Feathered Serpent may have been the city's political and religious center. Its art and architecture display a sophistication that suggests powerful leadership, perhaps a priest-king or council who controlled the city's ideology. Yet curiously, no names have ever been found inscribed in stone. There are no portraits of rulers, no records of dynasties. It is as if the people of Teotihuacan deliberately erased individuality, leaving only symbols. Power was collective, sacred, and mysterious. The feathered serpent, both divine and mortal, may have represented that unity, the God within every person, and the cost of awakening it. The temple's story also hints at how Teotihuacan's harmony may have begun to unravel. By the time of the sacrifices, around 200 AD, the city was expanding rapidly. Its population may have exceeded 150,000, drawing migrants from across Mesoamerica. Trade, art, and religion flourished, but so did tension. Evidence of social stratification appears in the archaeological record. Elite compounds filled with luxury goods, while commoners lived in crowded districts. The great ceremonies at the temple might have been meant to reinforce control, to remind the people of their dependence on divine order. But faith built on fear is fragile. The same rituals that unified the city may have also sown the seeds of its decline. Today, when the wind sweeps across the plaza before the temple, you can still feel a strange energy in the air, an invisible hum, as if the stones themselves remember what happened there. The carved serpents stare out with hollow eyes, their painted colors long faded, their meaning only half understood. Beneath them, the sacrificed warriors sleep in silence, their souls perhaps still guarding the secrets of Teotihuacan's vanished rulers. The temple stands as both monument and mystery, a reminder that every civilization, no matter how enlightened, carries within it the shadow of its own destruction. The Avenue of the Dead stretches for more than 2 miles, a monumental road cutting through the heart of Teotihuacan. From the foot of the Pyramid of the Moon, it runs straight toward the horizon, bordered on both sides by platforms, temples, and crumbling apartment compounds that once held thousands of people. When you walk along it today, under the burning Mexican sun, the air feels still, heavy, almost timeless. Every step echoes on the ancient stone, and for a moment, it's easy to imagine the avenue as it once was, alive with priests, merchants, and pilgrims dressed in bright feathers, carrying incense, flowers, and offerings to the gods. The Aztecs gave it the name we use today, the Avenue of the Dead, because they believed the mounds flanking it were tombs. In reality, they were not graves, but ceremonial platforms, each dedicated to a temple or residence of the elite. Still, the name fits. The avenue feels haunted. It leads from the sacred Pyramid of the Moon at the north end, past the great plazas, to the Temple of the Feathered Serpent in the south, a symbolic journey from life to death, from creation to the underworld. The entire city seems designed as a living map of the cosmos. Every building, every angle, every stairway holds meaning. Recent archaeological work has revealed that much of Teotihuacan remains underground. What we see today, the pyramids, plazas, and stone facades, is only the surface. Beneath the avenue lies a hidden city of tunnels, rooms, and passageways. Using radar and resistivity scans, researchers have found networks of chambers stretching beneath the main temples, some connecting to one another like veins under the skin of the earth. In 2017, a team discovered a vast cavity running directly under the avenue's central section. They suspect it may have been intentionally filled in ancient times, sealing away rituals and offerings that once took place in the dark. What lies buried there could rewrite everything we know about Teotihuacan. The architecture above ground shows astonishing precision. The city's grid aligns not with the compass, but with celestial events, the setting of the Pleiades, the rising of the sun on certain key days, and perhaps even the orbit of Venus. The builders seem to have measured time and space together, merging astronomy with faith. The avenue itself might represent the path of the dead, a terrestrial reflection of the Milky Way, leading souls toward the mountain horizon where the sun sets. Along its length stood hundreds of structures, homes, temples, palaces, many painted in vivid colors now lost to centuries of erosion. Some murals survive, showing gods, priests, and animals intertwined in scenes of ritual and transformation. In one compound, archaeologists found murals of jaguars blowing conch shells, their bodies adorned with stars and flames. In another, water flows from the hands of a goddess, surrounded by flowers, butterflies, and human figures offering gifts. These paintings tell us that Teotihuacan was not a city of war alone, but one of deep spirituality and artistry. It was a place where daily life and religion merged seamlessly, where the street outside your door might double as a sacred procession route. The Avenue of the Dead was not just a road, it was the spine of an entire world. The city's residential architecture is as mysterious as its temples. Most citizens lived in multi-family apartment compounds, the first of their kind in the Americas. Built from stone and stucco with inner courtyards and shared altars, these complexes suggest a highly organized society. People from different regions of Mesoamerica lived side by side, Zapotecs, Mixtecs, Maya, and others, each maintaining elements of their own culture while participating in Teotihuacan's shared religion. This diversity may have been the source of its strength and its mystery. No single ethnic group or language defines Teotihuacan. It was a civilization without a known name, a city built by many hands, united under one cosmic vision. Yet beneath this harmony, archaeologists have found evidence of growing strain. Around 500 AD, construction on the Grand Monument stopped. The murals begin to change, showing darker imagery, flames, weapons, and depictions of chaos. Some apartment compounds were burned, others were abandoned. The once carefully maintained avenue became choked with debris. What caused this collapse remains unknown. Climate change, drought, rebellion, or invasions have all been proposed. Some scholars think it was internal, a revolt against the ruling elite, perhaps after years of oppressive rituals and sacrifice. Others suspect that as the city grew too large, its spiritual order began to break down. A civilization built to mirror the cosmos may have become too heavy for its own foundations. In the layers of ash and rubble found along the avenue, archaeologists uncovered signs of deliberate destruction. Statues smashed, temples defaced, altars overturned. Yet curiously, not all the city was burned, only the religious and administrative centers. This selective ruin suggests rebellion from within, a people turning against their own priests and gods. When the fires went out, Teotihuacan was never rebuilt. Its people dispersed into smaller towns across the valley, and the once great city faded into myth. By the time the Aztecs found it centuries later, it was already ancient, its true name forgotten. Standing on the Avenue of the Dead today, you can still feel the echo of that lost grandeur. The wind carries dust and the faint scent of earth warmed by centuries of sun. The stone blocks, though cracked and worn, still hold the geometry of perfection. The mountains in the distance glow gold at dusk, the same view the city's builders saw, the same horizon they aligned their world to. Beneath your feet, deep below the surface, lies the hidden city, its tunnels sealed, its offerings untouched, its gods perhaps still waiting in the dark. Teotihuacan endures not as a ruin but as a riddle carved in stone. Who built it, why it fell, and what it meant to those who lived there are questions that remain unanswered. Yet even in silence, the Avenue of the Dead speaks. It tells of a people who sought to bring heaven to earth, who built a city not just to live in, but to dream within. A city that, though long dead, continues to breathe through the stones of the valley, whispering its secrets to those who still come to listen. For centuries, archaeologists have studied the grand pyramids and monuments of Teotihuacan, yet the most important mystery remains unsolved. Who were the people who built this city, and where did they go? The temples, tunnels, and murals survive, but the names, languages, and personal stories of its citizens have disappeared completely. There are no known inscriptions that mention kings, no royal tombs, no written records. What remains are fragments, bones, pottery, murals, and the quiet traces of everyday life preserved in clay and stone. From these pieces, researchers have begun to reconstruct a portrait of the forgotten millions who once called Teotihuacan home. The first thing they discovered is that Teotihuacan was unlike any other city in the ancient Americas. It was vast, organized, and multicultural. Archaeologists have found distinct neighborhoods, each representing different ethnic groups from across Mesoamerica. There was a Zapotec barrio with pottery styles from Oaxaca, a Maya enclave where hieroglyphic graffiti appears on the walls. Merchants from the Gulf Coast brought seashells, obsidian, and exotic birds. Artisans carved jade, made tools, and painted murals in workshops scattered across the city. It was a civilization built on trade, art, and faith, a melting pot that thrived on diversity. The population at its peak may have exceeded 150,000, possibly even 200,000. That would have made Teotihuacan one of the largest cities on Earth during its time, rivaling Rome, Alexandria, or Chang'an. Its people lived in apartment compounds, sharing communal courtyards where families cooked, raised children, and made offerings to household gods. These compounds, with their stone walls and inner altars, gave archaeologists rare insight into ancient urban life. Each one was like a miniature world, decorated with murals, filled with pottery, bones, and tools. Some show evidence of small-scale industry, others of ritual activity. Teotihuacan society was both practical and deeply spiritual. The art that survives on the city's walls reveals a complex worldview. Common motifs include serpents, jaguars, owls, and human figures wearing elaborate headdresses. Yet none of these are portrayed as individuals. Unlike Mayan art, which celebrated kings and dynasties, Teotihuacan's art shows no ruling faces, no personal names. Power here was anonymous. It may have been a collective priesthood or council that governed the city, unified by shared cosmic belief rather than monarchy. This anonymity is one reason the city's story is so elusive. Its very identity was meant to dissolve into the divine. What we know of the people comes from what they left behind. Their diet consisted of maize, beans, squash, and chili peppers. They hunted deer and rabbits, fished in nearby lakes, and cultivated crops on terraces and irrigation canals. They made obsidian blades sharper than steel, traded in cotton, salt, and cacao, and crafted delicate jewelry from jade and shell. They understood astronomy, mathematics, and engineering well enough to plan a city aligned with the cosmos. The average citizen may not have known the calculations behind the architecture, but they would have lived each day surrounded by the symbols of their faith, the temples, murals, and sacred mountains that defined their world. Religion governed every aspect of their lives. The gods of Teotihuacan were forces of nature: rain, wind, fire, fertility, and death. The feathered serpent represented transformation, the storm god brought the rain, and the great goddess, a figure depicted with flowing water and plants, symbolized both life and decay. Offerings to these deities have been found in nearly every household, from small clay figurines to miniature altars. Children and adults alike would have participated in rituals, music, and festivals dedicated to maintaining cosmic harmony. Yet despite their devotion, something went wrong. Around the year 550 AD, the city began to decline. Archaeologists find layers of ash and evidence of burning across the ceremonial core. Statues were smashed, temples desecrated, murals defaced. It appears the violence was internal, not invasion, but rebellion. Perhaps the lower classes rose up against the priestly elite. Perhaps drought or famine caused unrest. Whatever the reason, the city that had stood as a symbol of balance collapsed into chaos. Within decades, its population plummeted. Families abandoned their homes. The great avenue fell silent. As the centuries passed, vegetation reclaimed the ruins. The once bright colors of the murals faded to dust. The bones of the dead mingled with the soil. The people dispersed, migrating to smaller towns across central Mexico. Their language vanished, their gods absorbed and reinterpreted by later civilizations. The Toltecs and Aztecs looked back at Teotihuacan with awe and confusion, calling it the place where gods were born. They adopted its symbols, the feathered serpent, the stepped pyramid, but they no longer remembered their true meanings. The builders of Teotihuacan had become legends, their history transformed into myth. For archaeologists today, the absence of written records is both a curse and a gift. Without texts, we cannot know what the people called themselves, how they spoke, or how they viewed their own downfall. But that silence also forces us to listen differently, to the stones, the art, and the bones. Each excavation brings us closer to understanding not just a lost culture, but a universal truth, that even the greatest civilizations can vanish, leaving only questions behind. When you walk through the ruins at dusk, the light turns golden against the stone. The wind carries the scent of dust and dry grass. The mountains glow in the distance, and shadows stretch across the ancient avenue. Somewhere beneath your feet are the remains of homes, temples, and people who once believed their city would last forever. Their words are gone, their names erased, but the rhythm of their lives remains etched in the geometry of their creation. Teotihuacan may have fallen, but its spirit endures, a reminder that every empire, no matter how powerful, exists only for a moment between sunrise and sunset. For more than 1,000 years after Teotihuacan's collapse, the great city slept beneath layers of earth and silence. Villages rose nearby, fields were planted over the buried avenues, and time erased nearly all memory of the people who had once ruled this valley. By the time the Aztecs rose to power in the 14th century, Teotihuacan was already ancient. Its pyramids stood like mountains, weathered and hollow, their paint long gone, but their presence undeniable. The Aztecs, seeing the scale of what remained, believed no human hands could have built it. They called it Teotihuacan, the place where gods were born, and made pilgrimages to its temples. In their mythology, this was where the current sun had first been created, where gods had sacrificed themselves to light the sky. When the Spanish conquistadors arrived in the early 1500s, they too saw the pyramids and marveled. Chroniclers wrote about enormous ruins north of Mexico City, but no one understood their origin. The Spanish, focused on conquest and conversion, had little interest in studying ancient stones. The city remained mostly forgotten for centuries, known only to local villagers who used its stones for building or farming. Beneath the soil, the true scale of Teotihuacan waited, untouched. It wasn't until the late 19th century that the city was brought back into the world's attention. In 1884, Mexican archaeologist Leopoldo Batres began excavations under the government of Porfirio Diaz. His goal was not only to uncover the ruins, but to create a national symbol for Mexico's indigenous heritage. Batres focused on the Pyramid of the Sun, clearing tons of earth and debris with little modern equipment. The techniques were crude by today's standards, sometimes destructive, but they revealed the immense structure in full for the first time in over a millennium. When the centennial of Mexican independence arrived in 1910, the government held celebrations atop the restored pyramid. Teotihuacan had once again become a sacred site, a monument not just of gods, but of national pride. In the decades that followed, archaeologists from around the world arrived to study the city. Excavations expanded across the Avenue of the Dead, the temples, and the residential compounds. With each dig, Teotihuacan grew larger in scale and mystery. Researchers realized that what was visible on the surface was only a fraction of what lay beneath. Layers of construction, tunnels, and hidden rooms suggested a civilization with a level of planning far beyond what was once believed possible in pre-Columbian America. By the mid-20th century, new methods transformed our understanding of the site. Radiocarbon dating placed the city's peak between 150 and 550 AD. Aerial photography revealed geometric precision that stretched across miles, a layout aligned with celestial bodies, built on a plan so deliberate that even modern urban designers were astonished. Beneath the pyramids, archaeologists began finding offerings: jade, obsidian, seashells, and sometimes mercury sealed in vessels that glinted under torchlight. These discoveries hinted that the people of Teotihuacan had sought not merely to honor their gods, but to replicate the structure of the universe itself. In 2003, heavy rains opened a sinkhole near the Temple of the Feathered Serpent. When archaeologist Sergio Gomez lowered a camera into the hole, it revealed a tunnel, sealed since antiquity. Over the next decade, Gomez and his team spent years excavating it, often crawling through the narrow passage on their stomachs. What they found astonished the world. The tunnel stretched more than 100 meters beneath the temple, its walls coated with pyrite and hematite that sparkled like stars in the darkness. Inside were thousands of offerings: jade figurines, obsidian knives, seashells, wooden masks covered in precious stones, and even pools of liquid mercury. The air inside was still and cold, untouched for over 1,800 years. At the tunnel's end were chambers that may have served as symbolic tombs for gods or rulers, but no human remains were ever found. In 2015, drones and ground-penetrating radar revealed even more hidden chambers beneath the pyramids. Some appear to have been intentionally sealed, as if the builders never wanted them opened again. Others remain too deep or unstable to excavate. The discoveries suggest that Teotihuacan was not just a city, It was a living monument, a replica of the cosmos designed to function both above and below ground. Every level had meaning: the sky, the surface, and the underworld connected through architecture, ritual, and mathematics. Modern excavations have also uncovered traces of the city's final days. Layers of ash show evidence of massive fires in temples and palaces. Statues of deities were smashed, murals defaced, and offerings scattered. The destruction seems selective, almost ceremonial. Perhaps the people of Teotihuacan, in their final act, destroyed their own gods. Whether it was rebellion, despair, or renewal, no one can say. But even in ruin, the city's order endured. Its geometry, its alignment with the heavens, and its massive scale survived the centuries almost untouched. Today, archaeologists continue to work in Teotihuacan using lasers, drones, and scanning technology to map its unseen depths. Each year, new discoveries reshape what we thought we knew. Yet the core questions: who built it, how they organized their society, and what ultimately led to their disappearance, remain unanswered. The more we uncover, the more mysterious the city becomes. Walking through the site now, it's impossible not to feel the presence of both science and spirit. The tourists climbing the pyramids, the researchers measuring the stones, the wind whispering through the grass, it all feels connected, as if the city is still alive, watching us study it. Perhaps that was always the builder's intention. Teotihuacan was designed to last beyond time, to draw the living back to its ruins, to make them wonder. And in that sense, it succeeded. 2,000 years later, the gods of Teotihuacan still command attention, their city still shaping human imagination. The story of Teotihuacan does not end with its ruins. Though its people vanished, its influence never truly disappeared. For centuries after its fall, echoes of its greatness spread across Mesoamerica like ripples through time. The Toltecs, who rose hundreds of years later, borrowed its symbols, its gods, and even its architectural styles. The Aztecs revered it as sacred ground, believing their own civilization was born from its dust. To them, Teotihuacan was the birthplace of the fifth sun, the current age of the world. It was said that when the previous sun had died, the gods gathered in darkness and sacrificed themselves upon a great fire so that the new sun could rise. That fire, they claimed, burned in Teotihuacan. The city's mythic aura persisted into the Spanish colonial period and beyond. Even as European missionaries dismissed indigenous legends as superstition, the site remained magnetic, a place of pilgrimage and mystery. Farmers would sometimes find obsidian tools or fragments of pottery in their fields, unaware they held the remnants of one of humanity's greatest urban experiments. The pyramids loomed on the horizon, half buried but indestructible, waiting for their next awakening. Teotihuacan's legacy is both material and spiritual. Architecturally, it set the pattern for later civilizations. The great stepped pyramids of the Aztecs and Maya trace their design directly to Teotihuacan's model. Its urban planning, wide avenues, ceremonial plazas, and standardized apartment complexes showed an understanding of space that would not be matched again in the Americas for over 1,000 years. Even the city's orientation, tilted slightly from true north, reappears in the layout of later temples, as if its builders had passed on not just their stones, but their cosmic code. Culturally, the ideas that began in Teotihuacan continued to shape the Mesoamerican world. The feathered serpent became one of the most enduring deities of the Americas, worshipped in different forms from Mexico to Guatemala. The rain god Tlaloc persisted through centuries of changing empires. Even the city's anonymity, its lack of personal glorification, may have influenced later traditions that valued communal identity over individual fame. Teotihuacan's rulers chose not to carve their names in stone, but in doing so, they achieved something even greater. They became eternal by becoming invisible. For modern scholars, Teotihuacan stands as a paradox. It was both advanced and mysterious, ordered yet violent, spiritual yet pragmatic. Its citizens mastered urban design, astronomy, and craftsmanship, but left almost no words behind. We can measure their achievements, but we cannot hear their voices. Perhaps that silence is part of its power. In the absence of answers, imagination fills the void. Every visitor who walks its avenues, every archaeologist who uncovers another hidden chamber, becomes part of the story. The city invites us to question not only who built it, but why we build it all. In recent years, Teotihuacan has become a symbol of endurance. Despite earthquakes, erosion, and the weight of centuries, its structures still stand, massive, deliberate, unbroken. The same volcanic rock that its builders shaped by hand has outlasted empires, revolutions, and generations. At dawn, when the first light hits the Pyramid of the Sun, the entire complex glows as if reborn. Tourists stand in silence, some raising their hands to the sky, feeling the warmth of the sun the way the ancient priests once did. For a moment, the line between past and present blurs. Yet the questions remain. Who designed the city with such precision? How did they move such immense stones without metal tools or beasts of burden? Why did they build the tunnels filled with mercury, the chambers that glimmer like stars beneath the earth? And what happened that caused them to abandon everything? Each discovery brings us closer to the truth, but also opens new mysteries. Perhaps that is the nature of Teotihuacan, a city meant not to reveal, but to remind us that knowledge and wonder are inseparable. For scientists, the work continues. LiDAR scanning, satellite imaging, and microscopic analysis of artifacts have given glimpses of answers, hints of a society organized around shared ritual rather than kingship, one that saw itself as part of a cosmic rhythm. But even technology cannot fully decode what drove them to such perfection. The city was not built for survival. It was built for eternity. And in that sense, its builders succeeded beyond measure. At sunset, when the sky turns amber and the shadows stretch across the valley, Teotihuacan returns to its ancient stillness. The wind moves through the ruins, carrying whispers of drums and chants long gone. The pyramids darken, their shapes merging with the mountains behind them. Lights flicker in the modern towns nearby, but the ancient stones remain unchanged. The same stars that guided its builders now watch over the empty plazas. The same sun that once rose over its temples still burns above them. Teotihuacan endures as a monument not just to the past, but to the enduring human need to reach for the divine. It stands as proof that we have always sought to understand our place in the cosmos, through worship, through creation, through the building of cities that mirror the heavens. Its people are gone, their words forgotten, but their dream remains carved into the earth itself. A dream of unity, of order, of light rising from darkness. And as long as the pyramids of Teotihuacan stand beneath the Mexican sky, that dream will never die.